Well, hello everybody, and welcome here. I'm your area director, Tim Roberts, if you don't know. And because I'm used to sucking the oxygen out of the room when I talk, they asked me to start. So it's important, this opportunity, for everybody to kind of have a greater understanding of what's been going on with the Olalla Water System, where it's going, why things are the way they are, and we have someone that's got technical expertise to be able to explain it. Are you having a hard time here? Okay. So one of the other issues is, like, a lot of times, I know, like everybody else, I get frustrated. Sometimes I don't get enough information. I feel like I'm not being told anything. And then when I do get information, sometimes it's too technical or it's too much all at once, and then I make the same mistake of, I don't know what's going on. So we're hoping that this provides a bit of clarity. At the same time, we're going to have some handouts for you to take back at the end with a comment section for you. You don't need to put any information about your, who you are, where you are from, and your address, etc. It's just questions that you want answered that we weren't able to answer, so that we can go back to the technical experts, and then we can address that with a different forum or sending that information out.
You are the technical expert, because we're 9 months on the water.
Excuse me, wait 1 second. What we're going to do here, we're going to do this orderly. I understand what you're saying. I just explained that there's a technical person that works with the outfit, and they're going to answer your questions. We're going to go through what and where and why we've got to where we're at now, and then what we're looking forward to in the future, and then we're going to have a Q&A. We're going to break down into the Olalla Water System overview, but also tie into what's and why we've been looking at universal metering, not on your private property, but on the public access part. So that one, when that is finished, we will then have a Q&A. At the end of that question period, we will then do a high-level thing of information about further stuff, and then we'll have another Q&A about that. But I do understand you're frustrated.
We're frustrated.
Yeah, and I get that. I get just as frustrated, and so do the staff. They're working through. They've been working on this for as long as you've been dealing with boil water. So I just want you to give them the opportunity. If there's questions that they answer through their PowerPoint here, and it needs some explanation, and it needs breaking down or simplifying, let's do that here. Because sometimes I don't even, I get confused. There was one that came out, I thought it said one thing, but it actually said something different. So I went back to the managers of the staff and then just said, hey, this wasn't clear. We need to have a community gathering, and let's get this stuff sussed out. So that's why we're here. And we're going to keep on doing this. We're going to look at getting this finished here, and then we're going to have it all copied in regards to my voice, your answers, your questions, what's on the slide projection. It's going to go next week up for those people that missed stuff. And again, as I've mentioned, and I've even stated there on social media, feel free if something doesn't feel clear or you have another question, I'm always available. You can send something to my email, you can text me, you can write, call me on the phone. If I'm not on a call in the back of the ambulance, more often than not, I'm going to answer you at ASAP or find the answer for you from someone else. So we're here about getting to the bottom of your concerns, your frustrations, and our frustrations, because nobody here wants this system to be where you're boiling your water. We don't want that. So this is the reason we're working hard on it. I'm right now, it's going to, as again, what we have right over here is Eric. Eric can kind of explain to you some of the process.
Thank you, Director Roberts. We'll keep it short. Just want to let you know what we're doing is we're recording this, as Director Roberts said, so we can put it online. So if you have questions, it would be ideal, if you don't mind, if you could come up here. I'll hold the mic for you. You can ask whatever questions you have. We have Shelley Fiorito here, who is the Manager of Engineering Services. Some of the questions that you have, if they're high level, really technical, require a different level of feedback. What we'll do is we'll take that information back and we will put it on the RDOS Regional Connections website, but also, like Director Roberts said, if you phone him, he'll be able to give you an update once we get more information. But for the most part, what Shelley's going to provide tonight is going to be a high-level overview of what the challenges are, because I think there may be some misinformation, but also it's a chance for you to ask questions to get some clarification. So I am with communications with the RDOS. So what we're hoping is that we can do the quick presentation, provide some information that you may or may not know already, and then from there have a Q&A, and then Shelley's going to do a second session with a bit more information about the meters and how they work and why they're coming in, and then same thing. So if you do have a question, it would be ideal if you could line up. I'm assuming if there's 10 people that want to talk, rather than just a free-for-all, but we really would like to capture the audio. You won't be on camera, but for anybody watching this online, if they just hear voices in the distance, it will be frustrating for them. And sir, I see you do have a question. I think if it can wait until the presentation, that would be great. I appreciate as well, I went to a public meeting last night for the Sage Mesa Water System. I appreciate there is a level of frustration. And what we're doing here today is to hopefully provide some answers. If there's genuine concerns you have that you feel the RDOS hasn't addressed, we can document that, but we're here to try and answer the questions, and that's why we've got Shelley up front. And unless Director Roberts has anything else to add, I will hand it over to Shelley Fiorito.
Hello. Hi, everybody. As Eric said, my name is Shelley Fiorito, and I'm the Manager of Engineering Services in the Utility Department, so I am managing the operations of all our water systems across the region. So I wanted to provide just a really quick overview of the system before we get into the details of the water quality concerns that we've had. So the Olalla Water Service was established in 1996. We have an active well currently that was drilled in 1998 at a depth of 155 feet, and that's tapped into aquifer number 935. And currently within Olalla Water System, we've got 226 connections that include residential irrigation, non-agriculture connections, and commercial properties.
How is that sounding? Is everybody unable to hear?
Hearing okay?
The sound is absolutely shit.
It's echoing. So Shelley, could you, you're going to have to speak slower too?
Can I try the other mic maybe?
Yeah, because it really does echo. You got to hold it down. Start it.
How's that?
That's
Is that any better?
Check. You want to try this mic? It seems to be louder. Let's try this one. Can you all hear if we talk like that? The audio echo in this room, I think, is a challenge, but I'll see if I can adjust that.
Can you try that? Just kind of quickly go.
Yeah, so we can just go over this again quickly. So the Olalla Water Service. Yes. So we have the Olalla Water Service, which was established in 1996. Currently there's a well that was drilled in 1998 that is to the depth of 155 feet, and that draws out of the aquifer 935. And currently there's 226 connections within the Olalla Water System, and that consists of some residential irrigation, which is non-agricultural, and commercial properties.
How was that? Was that better?
We okay? Okay, so within our water systems, when we operate, we are given a classification from the province, and the Olalla Water System is classified as a small water system. So that basically means that we serve a population of under 500 people. The system itself has 16 kilometers of water mains. We have a reservoir that has a capacity of 385 cubic meters. And when we're running at full flow, it would only take 6 hours to empty our reservoir. Sure.
So if we're capable of handling 500, we're only using 226, so we're only running at half capacity now.
The
There's one you said
classification
that
is
only-
just, is set by the Interior Health, so it sets the regulations for how we manage the system and the rules that we have to follow, but it's not necessarily tied to how many connections we have.
But you did say that it's capable of handling 500.
She
Is
was
that
saying
correct?
500 is a limit in regards to certain regulations.
Right.
And we could have less capacity than 500, or we could have, maybe the system has more capacity, but we're a small community, so with the government, it's qualified as a small system with 500. So it really isn't tied to the pump or the well.
And I just want to jump in if I can. Ideally, if you could just give Shelley about 5 minutes or 10 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll jump in on questions, just so we can keep it a little orderly and let Shelley catch her rhythm. Thanks.
So when we're looking at our water system, one of the limiting factors that we have, or I guess it's not limiting because we're doing really well with water consumption, but our licensed allocation for the Olalla Water System is 250,000 cubic meters per year that we're licensed by the province to use for the community. And this just shows the last few years of consumption that we've recorded with the system. So from 2019, we had 130,000. It went up, peaked in 2021, up to just under 190,000. So we haven't reached our capacity as far as use, but this just shows how much, or where we're at with water consumption based on conditions. It's going to fluctuate based on how the weather is, how hot we get, how much water use there is.
And again, the 250,000, that's in regards to regulation, right? The 250,000 is in regards to what we're allowed with our license. It doesn't necessarily how much water is underground.
Yeah.
It just,
Why is there an hour allotted and not?
that's the provincial government does. So it's their regulation that we have a license and we're only allowed to use 250,000 a year. So just, that's not at our level, that's not the regional district.
So we established that there's many underground water leaks. So a lot of this water is being wasted.
Well, we're gonna get to that, exactly. We're gonna get to that, okay?
So moving on, I maybe can clarify some of the complications with the regulations. So as a water system, the RDOS is governed by the Drinking Water Protection Act, which outlines the rules that water purveyors must follow to provide safe drinking water to users of the system. The second regulation that we have to follow is the Drinking Water Protection Regulation. And this regulation gets into more specific details of how we operate the system, the level of training that the operators require, how many times we have to sample for safety within the system itself. And these are all administered by the Ministry of Health and Interior Health Authority. So just a specific in the table here, the thresholds for the total coliform bacteria, which is the bacteria that's causing the water issues or water quality issues, is set out in the Drinking Water Protection Regulation, and we're not able to have, or the threshold is actually 0 for samples. So any water sample that we take and send to the lab cannot have any total coliforms in it, or it's flagged as a problem.
And again, that's not our regulation, right? That's from the provincial and federal government.
How often do you keep changing the levels?
You're selling something that's not legal. If you're selling drinking water and you can't drink it, why the heck should you pay for it?
Well, right now, we're going to get to that, but of course, what we're doing and getting to the bottom of these problems is taking a pile of staff time and effort and that comes at a cost as well. And the system and the overhead. So we'll get, let's get to those, let's get to your position after, so we can stand up and deal with the questions specifically. I want Shelley to be able to get through that. I just want to make sure you understand the information she's saying. Whether or not we agree with it or not, the important part is that this is what we operate with. And you need to understand it, don't have to agree with it, but we can then talk about it more clearly when we all understand it.
So just to give a little more information related to the total coliforms, which is sort of a group of bacteria that's indicating that there's an issue with the water quality. It is a naturally occurring type of bacteria, but when it shows up in water samples, it's flagged as a potential issue. So with our water regulations and the rules that the RDOS has to follow to provide public water, once total coliforms have been identified in our lab samples, we are required to follow the direction from Interior Health. So when those total coliforms show up in our water samples, we are told by Interior Health that we need to either provide temporary chlorination. Once the levels get high enough, that's when we moved into the boil water advisory. So there's multiple levels of concern that Interior Health has seen with the water samples that we've provided. The other thing that we did find in water samples was the background bacteria, which kind of classifies every other type of bacteria. So just to be clear, we have total coliform. We have not found fecal coliform, which would indicate either a contamination from an agricultural source or septic contamination. So we have not found that in any of our samples, and we have not found E. coli either. So in all the sampling that we've done since this started at the end of last summer, we have not found either of those in any of the samples.
We had extra chlorine starting then.
That would have been like at the end of last summer, right?
No, it was like May long weekend. May long weekend was basically brought in this.
Okay.
We had so much chlorine in it that we had this sitting down and it passed out.
And I was going to add to that is anytime that they work on the system and they have to shut down flow, whenever you shut it down, you have to chlorinate afterwards if you've done anything. So they may have been working on a main. There's all different kinds of things. The reason why they end up having to chlorinate. Anytime they shut down the system and open it up, they then have to chlorinate. So those what don't necessarily last the whole time.
I'm not. I'm just not clear about what level you're referring to. This one here?
No. What she's... Hi, there you go. What she's asking is, in regards to the chloroform levels, we know that there's no fecal coliform. There's no E. coli, but what you're asking is when did the levels change the last time from the government?
Well, whatever the government allows, they keep changing the levels down, so water that was fine a year ago is not fine this year.
Okay, so what they're asking is what's the last time that changed?
I'm not sure when the last time the province changed the thresholds for total coliforms. That would be part of the provincial legislation. I know that the last update with that legislation, with the act, was in 2024. I think it was in March, but I don't know if they changed the total coliforms at that point.
And all these standards are set by the provincial government?
Yeah.
Every year for every city.
Yes.
So why is Headley having their lower? There's the bar higher.
I think we're thinking of maybe a different,
Headley is
but
dealing
it's a different.
is dealing with arsenic, not this coliform. It's a different thing.
What exactly is in our water that we can't drink?
That, if you look up here, Shelley was explaining one slide back. It's what's called total coliform.
Yeah.
I kept on thinking it was cauliflower, but that's what it is. It's not the fecal and it's not the E. coli, it's the coliform. And what she was stating earlier is that they have was it correct, a zero tolerance?
Yes, the threshold is 0 total coliform in a sample. So the timeline for the water quality that showed up, so the first total coliform counts that appeared was in July of 2024. So we increased the sampling frequency to monitor that. Temporary chlorination was implemented and then removed just to clean that system up, because the chlorination will kill the total coliform bacteria. At that point, the system was flushed by operations staff, and we were monitoring the system from 3 different sampling stations across the infrastructure. That kind of carried through into spring of 2025, and at that point we had an additional 2 sampling stations installed across the system, strategically, just so that we could attempt to identify if there was a particular section of the infrastructure and the system that was potentially the source. So we've been monitoring those 5 sites at an increased regularity. The boil water notice was issued once the results started showing that there was an increased count in the total coliforms. At this point, what we're sitting with is that we're continuing the implementation and removal of the temporary chlorine as we're isolating different sections of the system to try and identify where that source of contamination is coming from. We have not had any definitive solution or identification of where the coliform is coming from. That's concerning interior health. So until we're able to identify that, the pattern unfortunately is going to continue. There's really only one other scenario that we have that we can test, and it's related to the reservoir at this point. Unfortunately, or for safety reasons, we don't want to drain the reservoir and take it offline during fire season. So we'll be waiting until the risk of fire is decreased a little bit so that we can drain that reservoir and clear that out and see if we can find a source in that way. However, if that turns out that there isn't a way to identify where the contamination is coming from, there is the potential of a permanent chlorination, and that would be a decision that comes from interior health. If we can't find the source of that total coliform, they will decide whether the risk is high enough to implement the permanent chlorination on the system. And as far as the boil water notice is concerned, if permanent chlorination comes into effect, the boil water notice would obviously be lifted because the chlorination is killing the bacteria that's showing up in the water. Some of the other things that our staff have gone through to try and isolate and identify, they've gone down into the well and inspected most of the way down. We've assessed the backup surface source and been into the reservoir with a remote operated vehicle and cleaned and disinfected the reservoir. So they've done a very thorough job of attempting to identify a possible source of the contamination within the system and have not had any success. One of the final things that we wanted to discuss with the residents was the potential for cross-connection. It's something that can be quite common and is an unintentional contamination into a public system. So the idea is that what you can have is a private well supply on this side that's supplying your home at a certain pressure. Just see if this is going to work. There we go. If we have water pressure that's 60 psi coming from your private well into your home, but you also have a community water supply that's supplying your home, but the pressure is lower, is provided at a lower psi. So for this example, it's 40 psi. What can happen is the higher pressure from this side that's providing your private well, or is provided from your private well, is actually backflowing into the system because the pressure is lower here, so it's flowing straight through and can actually get back into the community water supply and potentially contaminate in that way. And it's very difficult to be able to identify that from just walking around and looking at it. So this would be, we have a cross-connection control program with our environmental technicians that would be happy to come to your home and just do an inspection at no charge, just to see if we can identify if there are any unintentional cross connections there.
So this would be if somebody has an existing well that they operate with off their property.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a private well. Up here you've got someone that's just got a hose that's sitting in a tank with some dirty water in it. So you could have the same thing. The backflow could go into the house's system and run back through because there's an imbalance in the pressures that are moving through the two different water supplies. So there's a number of ways. This is the private well and the community water supply example is quite a common way that it occurs. And people may not really realize that it's a risk. So we just wanted to make sure that we identified that.
How does that one work? What is most likely somebody would do to have that happen?
So it could be that it's just drawing back into the house and running through at a different pressure than...
If people have private leaks on their property, like extensive leaks, is that something where cross-contamination can happen?
There's potential there. It's less like the irrigation systems tend to be a common one for cross-connection as well. So home irrigation systems can have a different pressure because the lines are different size, so you can get back run from the irrigation system into the house as well, which can feed back into the community.
Wouldn't there have been like a backflow valve installed in there?
Ideally, that would be, if it's identified, that would be what the solution would be, but not necessarily everybody has.
No, but I'm saying, why wouldn't it have been installed when they were connected to the Olalla Water System?
So when we, with our water systems, when we connect residences to the water system, we have a curb stop that we run to. So we provide service to the property line, and then it's the homeowner's responsibility, and we have no indication, or we have no drawings or maps that show us where the water is, so it's up to the homeowner to...
They have to connect to Olalla's system, correct?
Yes.
Can I have, could you use your mic? We'd like the questions so that we can have it.
Can you just hold on a second? You know what I think we should do is, are you done that section?
This is the end of the water quality.
Okay, I think what we should do is we probably should go to Q&A if that's okay.
Sure.
Have a couple of questions, try and get some of this answered, and then move on to the next section. So sir, if you don't mind using the microphone to ask your question, that'd be really helpful.
Okay. So when they connect, private homeowners, you said, connect to your curb connection.
Yep.
Why isn't there a backflow valve installed there at that time?
I don't think at the time that Olalla Water System, and generally with our water connections, we just provide the service to the property line, and then it's the homeowners, like depending on what their configuration is, because it's kind of tied to how much flow you're using. So there's different sizes of backflow preventers that would be important depending on what you're going to use your supply for and how much you're going to need.
Do you have a follow-up? Does that not make sense? Okay, so what I was going to say, if I can... What's that?
I think I understand what he's saying.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
He's wondering that when we did the hookups initially, why isn't the backflow protection installed
Yeah.
at our end of it, before the private, so that we knew about that. And again, I think part of what Shelley was saying earlier is a lot of this stuff was done way before, but I don't know about the stuff now.
Our cross-connection program and the identification of the cross-connections is fairly new in the valley, so it might have been that when the service was created, it wasn't identified as a concern.
Do you have any method of discovering where these cross connections are?
It would be up to the homeowners to give us a call, and we can have our environmental techs come out, because they'll sort of have a better idea of where there's potential risk.
And that's at no cost to you.
And part of the problem, if I'm not mistaken, is that it's on private property. So
Yeah.
an RDOS operator can't go out to that property and look.
We can assist you in identifying, it's a homeowner's, like on the private property, it would be your homeowner's responsibility to mitigate that.
I do.
We need,
Check the reservoir first.
We have checked the reservoir.
And what are the findings in the reservoir?
So throughout the process, the issue has been we implement the chlorination to kill the bacteria, remove the chlorination, allow the system.
What have you found in the reservoir? Is it contaminated?
When we remove the chlorination and let the system run, it's fine for a period. I understand that.
excuse me, ma'am, she's trying to answer you.
After the chlorination is removed, everything is clear. So if you will allow me to just clarify the process, when there's total coliforms that are identified, we are required to chlorinate the system to clean the bacteria out of the water. We do that, we have samples that are tested, and IH will tell us that we can remove the chlorination. So we remove the chlorination and allow the system to run to see if new bacteria forms. In all the samples and configurations that we've isolated the different branches of the water system, we've isolated the reservoir, we've drained it and cleaned it and removed it from the circulation of the system temporarily, so we could try and identify it that way, and we have not found a source of the contamination. So it ends up happening after 2 weeks, we're getting, and it's turned up very randomly across the system. So sometimes it's the reservoir, the sample station at the reservoir, sometimes it's down on North Main, sometimes it's on 7th, it's showing up really randomly within the system, and it's not giving us the opportunity to identify where the source is.
Excuse me, ma'am, we just want you to use a mic so that people can hear your question.
So the reservoir is contaminated.
It's not been determined that that's the source of the contamination.
But how come when you chlorinate, it doesn't clear it up?
I'm talking.
Animals and therefore.
I can answer what she said, and again, the process, and this is the reason it takes so long. The system of its as a whole has this coliform, right? Then they're going to take each individual segment, they're going to isolate that segment, they're then going to chlorinate it until it's totally clear of any coliform. Then they flush it back with water in that isolated factor, and when they check that, it's come up clean. But then eventually, the system from somewhere else, it's then turned up again. But right when they do the testing, after they've cleaned it, flushed it, they did not come up with any coliform in the reservoir.
They didn't flush the reservoir, they didn't go see what's in there.
We did empty the reservoir, it was emptied and
That's not that they were waiting for the 5 seasons to be over. That's what you say.
You're talking about. She's talking about. You stated that they're waiting now to empty it because we're going to do a not only a cleaning, but we're going to reseal it.
So,
You want to grab that mic?
Battery done?
so the last remaining piece that we have, and the potential to identify the source. So when we do our sampling, the total coliforms haven't always shown up at the same spot from the same sample station. So the only thing that we've really excluded is that it's not coming from the well. But when we do the chlorination and then we remove it again, it's showing up at one of the 5 stations, but not always the same station. So we're limited on, or it's not possible to identify a source because of that. So the last piece that we have that we can attempt to identify is so the reservoir was drained and scrubbed out and cleaned. We refilled it and the same thing happened again. So we know that there's still a source of contamination somewhere within the system, not necessarily the reservoir. But the only other piece that we can identify that may limit that is to have a lining put inside the reservoir on the concrete to try and block any type of like small seepage or something that may be happening within cracks in the concrete. That's the last thing that we can do, and I can't guarantee that that's going to be the solution, because it may not be from there.
But you said at the beginning that you had not drained the reservoir. You had not gone to
They have drained it, ma'am, they have drained it, they have scrubbed it, they have cleaned it, and the last thing to do, which is going to be costing us a few $100,000 that I put aside for Olalla from Community Works funds, is to have it completely sealed with a liner. Then we can be 100% sure about the reservoir. But we can't be 100% sure of the reservoir until we do that. So it has been drained, it has been emptied, and it has been scrubbed out. But that didn't take as long as it would to take the time to have it emptied and then relined. That takes a lot longer, and we do not want to have Olalla without fire protection for that length of time in this time of season. So that's why.
Does that clarify?
Check. I'm going to jump in for just a second. So our wireless guide, as wireless mics do, we're going to use the wired mic. Ideally, what would happen is if you have a question, if you don't mind, I know nobody wants to stand in front of an audience, but if you could come up to the microphone, it helps the people in the audience hear what you're asking, and it helps the folks who are watching this recording, could be you or your family, hear what people are saying. I want to clarify something really quickly. I'm in communications, but I've been listening to this conversation for months and months and months, so I have a general understanding of what's going on. We have qualified professionals at the RDOS who are working. No, and if you want to question their abilities or anything like that, that's up to you. But I can tell you that they're using all of the best available information. They're following what the province has laid out. They're following what Interior Health has laid out, and they're doing all the work that's available to try to identify why the area is challenged with contamination or whatever the concern is. So it's easy to say, well, they're not doing it right, but that's not necessarily true. What they're trying to do is identify the problem so they can fix it. And this presentation is meant to try and explain some of the challenges around doing that. And I hope it helps illuminate it. This PowerPoint presentation, by the way, will be posted on the RDOS website under the Olalla Water System page. As soon as we're done here tonight, when I get home, I'll post it on there. So if you want to look at any of these slides or the information, and then we'll put the video on next week. But anyway, if you do have a question, if you don't mind, if you could come up here and ask it on the mic just so everybody can hear it, that would be really, really helpful. Keep some order in the meeting so we're not just yelling things out. And again, nobody is discounting your frustration. It's a lot of frustration when you have a water system and it's on a boil water advisory. The idea is to try and explain what's going on and hopefully find a solution.
One, I was under the understanding that you found a leak in the reservoir. You posted it. I've seen it. I have it. I can produce it. And the other thing I want to know is the coliform or whatever it is. How dangerous is it to us? What's the danger level?
So the idea with the total coliforms and the 3 different levels, it's a group of bacteria. There's nothing specific, and I can't tell you how dangerous it is because there's not an identifier that says what specific type of or species of bacteria it is. Interior Health has flagged it because it's part of that family, and we're following the directions from Interior Health. Their threshold is 0 total coliform in the system. The only thing that we're able to verify is that there is no fecal coliform, that's also part of that family, and there's no E. coli in the system, which is also part of the total coliform family. So there's multiple different types of bacteria within that category, but we're not able to identify what it is or where it's coming from, apart from knowing it's not the fecal coliform and it's not E. coli.
The gentleman there, I think, and maybe some other people might question the ability of the RDOS staff who are qualified for this type of work at a fairly high level. Has any outside help been sought on managing this problem, or any outside information?
So we are in constant contact with Interior Health. We have to follow the guidelines that they give us. It's based on the classification of the system, so we're not just deciding one day that we're going to do the chlorination and that's the easy solution to it. What we're doing is trying to isolate and identify the bacteria so that we can remove the boil water notice and avoid chlorination on the system for a permanent solution to it. So the work that we've done has been to try and pull everything off the system as far as regulations go and go back to the regular.
You have a question, sir?
Why should we believe anything the RDOS ever says because they sent out a contract for garbage to a company that does a really bad job, and they didn't put it to tender, and now we're paying twice as much as we were last year. We're paying $20 more for water we can't drink, and it said right on that thing it's supposed to be drinking water we're paying for. And if you ever go to the RDOS to ask them a question, the first thing out of their mouths is it's not our fault. I have a friend who's dying because his kidneys have failed. He didn't get his garbage cans. They wouldn't answer their phones. I went in there to ask him where his garbage cans were, and they said, oh, it's not our fault, it's Waste Tech's fault. And so I had to get really mad and say, well, I didn't hire Waste Tech. You phone him up and find out where his garbage cans are. They had a counter petition announced in the paper about borrowing $10 million. So I read it on Friday. I drove in on Tuesday to sign the counter petition. It didn't exist. It was only online. Well, online, you can take that and you can shove it up Bill Gates' ass. Because everybody knows that people who go online have real problems with being normal social people. If I go online and I see you after I've gone online, I'll probably punch you in the face for no reason because I have that same thing that people who post online and go out and shoot kids or run through.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there, sir. I get your frustration. I can't answer your exact question about waste connections and about the cart collection program. It is put out to tender, and it is something that's gone through a process.
No, they announced in the paper that they didn't even put it to tender because Waste Connections is such a great company. Last year, I could throw away 2 bags of garbage every week. This year, I can throw away half a bag of garbage because my garbage can is only this big.
I'm going to ask Director Roberts if he wants to jump in because we're off topic.
It's not even in capital cost, it's in operating cost.
Just so you know, sir, again, this is about water, but in regards to curbside, if I'm assuming you paid attention that I stood up against it, I was on Global, I was on CBC saying that I didn't agree with that, but there's a voting system. I'm one voice of 20, and we came up with, all together, most of our rural guys like myself stood up and said we didn't want it that way, and that's because there are more people to vote against us than what we did, and unfortunately that's what happened. But that being said, that's a separate matter, and at any time you have any question, you can give me a phone call, and I'll talk to you about it.
I don't know the phone number, it's never been published in the papers.
If my phone number is published on the regional district, my email's on the regional district website. No?
You don't have a computer. You're like
Well, you just wait over here and I'll give you my phone number. Okay. Other people have my phone number here. So if you want my phone number, 250-499-0900. I actually got a 900 number, can you believe it? And then you can call the main office, and if you don't have that, they can direct you to my number. Also, if anybody wants to, it's super simple to email me. If you have email, it's troberts@rdos.bc.ca, right? I stood up to be your advocate. It doesn't mean everything's going to always work out well. I put the target on my back, that's fine. I'm here to stand up for you, but that comes at a cost, and there's just things that we need to be able to do. We need to work forward. Those things that the community doesn't want, I do stand up for you. But sometimes, things like what Shelley was telling you, that are the levels from the province, we have to maintain those, whether or not I like it or not. All right, so anyways, again, you've got my number. Anybody can get a hold of me at any time.
So it looks like we have a question, and then Shelley's going to talk about this metering system, universal metering, which I know you probably have some questions about, and she'll get into the details of that. Did you have a question?
I did have a question. I was going to ask about the chlorinization. If they do that to our water and our water metering. We don't want it. We don't need it.
All right, Shelley, you've got some slides on water metering. Hopefully you can give us a good presentation on what that means.
That's outside of our control, the chlorination. We're not able to, that's a decision that's made by Interior Health. It's not made by the RDOS. We have to follow the regulations and the requirements from Interior Health related to water quality. Okay, so the universal metering project, we started talking about this about 2 years ago, and the province had come up with a pilot project that was a fully funded installation of meters for residential communities within the province. So we were successful in our application and were able to provide or participate in this fully funded pilot project. So we received just over $2 million, which will cover the cost of purchasing and installing meters for the 3 RDOS communities that we submitted for, which would be Olalla, Willowbrook, and Falder. So we'll be installing meters in those 3 communities. And what we're looking at with the metering was just to address the demand for water that's constantly increasing. We're having longer growing seasons, the summers are getting hotter.
Can you slow it down just a little bit?
The winters are milder and receiving less precipitation year over year, which is putting pressure on the replenishing of the aquifers. Metering is proven to reduce residential use by approximately 30%, and with the increasing population density, the RDOS is looking to focus very carefully on creating the most efficient methods of service delivery within the region.
In home or in pits?
I didn't
Yes, they won't be on private property.
So you'll be digging up a driveway, right?
If your water service is in your driveway, it will be excavated, but it'll be restored back to. It's part of the project.
You're not paying.
You're going to be installing water meters?
Yes.
Yes, we can, and then that's more money for us. But we can't even get a refund for the 5 months that we can't drink the water.
So we've been working exceptionally hard. Our environmental team has been working hard to try and identify that.
Talk to our RDOS or put your name in there and give us a refund for the water we can't drink and we have to buy.
I can't.
Yeah, but then we want more money for meters and we can't drink it.
The meters are fully funded. That project is fully funded, so it's not coming out of homeowners' property or pockets.
Shelley, we've got a question.
I'm calling BS on we're not paying for it because it's coming from our tax dollars, so we are paying for it, okay? And there's no guarantee, that our water costs are going to go down. You stated that we discussed this. Who's we? Because you didn't discuss it with the people of Olalla, you and the Pink Palace or New Pink Palace and Penticton have discussed it. But you're saying it's not going to cost it. It costs us maybe not directly, but very indirectly.
Shelby, can I ask you a question? The water meter project is paid for by provincial dollars, which yes, we all pay into, but it is a grant that's not going to cost direct taxpayers that money from anything that they're paying or will be charged for. The first year, there's no charge, but isn't the water meter program meant to help identify some of the potential leaks in the system that will help improve the water system? Is that correct?
Yes, so if we can just zip through these few slides just to explain the process that we went through to identify the locations where, or the communities where water meters would be most effective. What we're looking at is trying to be proactive in our planning to reduce the costs that are associated with maintaining the utilities. So that would come with identifying the leaks that we have in the mainline system to any connections that we have. There could be breaks in lines along the way that we're able to identify once all the residential properties are metered and connected. With the leak detection program, this is just an example that would show the data that we receive from the meters themselves that just shows the consumption patterns that we're seeing, and it identifies the leaks for us to discuss with homeowners.
So the goal here is that we'll be able to identify if there's leakage or overusage or something's wrong on the private side, and the information can be then given to the homeowner. What'll happen is that the person that lives in the small home is a senior citizen that's not using very much water, to the family with 4 sons and a shop out back that's using a lot more water. Your funding and your fees will be tied to the amount of usage. So you have a basic amount in regards to what things cost in regards to your operations, like the infrastructure has a basic cost. But then your usage, it'll be, if you're saving water and you're not using as much as your neighbor, you will pay less. So the goal is that the people that are using less will pay less, and the people that use more will pay more. That's the goal. I pay more for my water because I have a farm. I pay for irrigation, I pay for the separate bungalow that's rented on my property, and I pay for my home. And I do pay, as all other farmers, we pay irrigation. Yeah, thanks.
So what we've looked at is a number of communities across the South Okanagan that support the tiered water rates. So that was what Director Roberts was referring to, and that someone that lives alone in a small home won't pay as much as someone that has a large family and is a higher consumer. So the intention is with the mock billing period, what you'll see is you will get your regular water bills as they are now for a whole year. And then along with those, you will get the quarterly updates that will tell you how much with the tiered system, how much you would pay. And that gives you a year to go through a summer season to see how much of a difference it's going to make with your billing. And it gives you an opportunity to find efficiencies because we have that leak detection piece there, and then you're able to identify ways that you can reduce consumption if you're interested, or if it turns out that it's higher than what you would normally, or what you have currently. But the idea is that when we're setting the tiered structure, we're going to try and maintain as close as we can that base level, which is what you guys are paying now. It does not, but it does help us if there's breaks. If there's breaks in the system and there's a contamination flowing through the breaks, being able to identify those leaks would potentially do that.
Why don't you install backflows where you have the major point of distribution? This way you don't contaminate
But if we don't know like what point in the system that the contamination is coming,
So do it when we install the meters.
so
What? Just one sec. I think it's also important to know that we've mentioned before that out of the regional district water systems, Olalla has the highest per capita consumption. And that doesn't make any sense, does it? That's in regards to if there's a farmer that's on the system, which I don't believe we have many, we don't have any agricultural.
irrigation is all non-agricultural in Olalla.
All the irrigation in Olalla, that is, all the farms are on their own systems. They are not on the Olalla. Olalla has no agricultural connections in regards to irrigation. It's just home irrigation, not the farm irrigation.
So within that 12-month period, what we're going to do is a cost analysis for the water system to ensure that our rates and the structure is practical and covers the operational costs, but also is cost effective for residents. So there isn't a hard set number that we're looking at currently. It's going to fluctuate in that billing period, that mock billing period, so that we make sure that we're covering everything and not billing the residents unnecessarily. Another piece of the metering program is that there is an online portal, so you can actually look at your consumption in real time. It reads in 15-minute increments, so you'll be able to look at your account and see what's happening with your system. You can set it for thresholds so that if it reaches a certain volume of water, you're able to receive a notification. So if you're getting close to that threshold, say to move up to the next tiered level, you'll get a notification for that.
Shelley, can I interrupt? We have a question coming up, but also, as been stated, some people don't have access to the internet, and so how would they gather that or get that type of information?
So probably either the pop-up offices or access to a library. We can definitely talk you through it over the phone, but it's difficult to, because it's your account, we can't necessarily access that for you. So it's a specific account that you would have access to, only you. So we can't go into your account without your permission, but we can probably figure out a way to help you with that if you don't have a computer.
Would there be a paper bill at the end of the year?
We're looking at quarterly billing. So when you get that mock bill, however you receive your bills now, you'll receive two pieces of paper. So one will be your actual bill and one will be the mock bill, and it'll be identified clearly that you don't need to pay it, but it's just to give you an idea of, with the new billing structure, how much you would pay for that quarter based on the amount of water that was consumed on your property.
So you get that, they'll send out two bills. One will be a regular bill, and then the other one would show you, if you were on a metered system, what that cost would be. And so then you'll be able to see it. But that bill you wouldn't be paying. You're only paying the one bill, but you'd get two, one for you to look at what it looks like in metering versus the way it is now. We have a question here though.
Yes, I was just wondering, I had to take my tap apart in the kitchen because we have got so much calcium coming through. It's just crazy. It was just all plugged. Why?
I don't have details on chlorine or on calcium levels in the water. I'm not sure how to answer that question.
We boil the water. You can't even you have to scrub the calcium off of it. It's so heavy.
No, and I understand. I've got lots of calcium in mine too.
Yeah.
And I'm on the KID.
So the final piece to that is that we will have dedicated...
1 second. Is this a louder mic than that one? Are you hearing me better than you're hearing her?
I think it's her voice.
a dedicated training session with the residents just to make sure that you understand how to access your accounts and get some of the data that will help you with water consumption. Do we want to stop and do questions for the
I have
water
some
meters?
questions here.
Me again. Good. Okay. So, this lady talked about not receiving the information. You're saying go to a library, do this, do that. You are providing a service that we pay for. There are not 75,000 people in Olalla. Why are you not sending us a letter to inform all the people? There are people that cannot come, they're too old. Some are sick, and some have no transportation. Why are you not giving the information to our city? Why?
So,
The only reason that
counties
we're
do mailouts.
here tonight is because we needed a gathering space, and Olalla doesn't have a center or a space that we can gather and discuss apart from being outside. And I know there's been...
Everybody from Olalla in here?
I'm not sure how I'm supposed to...
Send residents a letter to their address.
We
Don't
did
be
do...
so cheap, you want to install meters.
That, it's okay, we can send, so communications here. Have we sent any mailouts?
No. Well, that's...
There was a letter sent out to the people of Olalla 2 weeks ago. But if that's not enough, we'll send more.
This boil water thing goes on and on. My neighbor twice got a water kit and tested it for bacteria and found none. Why does it go on when there isn't even any dangerous bacteria in the water?
So when we do our sampling across the 5 stations that we have installed in Olalla, there's one up at the reservoir, there's one at the pump house, and there's 3 others down within the community. When we do the chlorination, the system is chlorinated to kill the bacteria. We lift the chlorination and let the system run for 2 weeks without the chlorine. And what's happening is there's bacteria just popping up randomly. We haven't been able to isolate where the contamination is coming from. So when the water is sampled, it can be fine one day and the next day it's popping up. But it could be from the north end of town, it could be from up at the reservoir, it could be from the south end of town. Like we're not finding a pattern of where it's identified or where it's located or where the source is. So we're repeating this process, trying to isolate sections of the system to see if we can isolate that particular leg of the infrastructure, identify if it's popping there. It hasn't been, so we bring it back online, and then 2 weeks later it'll show up in that section. So it's been very difficult to try and pin down where it's coming from or what portion of the system even it's identified, because it's not always from the same spot.
So this could go on for a long time.
There'll be a point where Interior Health will probably decide that permanent chlorination is a possibility.
So, and that's what we're trying to avoid. That's why they're having works hard at it. So the next step, again, like we said, is to completely reseal and put a liner in the reservoir to eliminate that as a possibility. So that's our next goal.
So if there's there's one more question coming?
Thank you. And as plain language as possible, will the meters cost us more than we're already paying for water now, or how is that going to work?
So the idea of the billing period that we've set up for 12 months is to look at operating costs for the system.
Is it going to cost more or is it going to cost less?
We're not able to identify that currently because we don't know what the cost of the system is. Ideally, with the meter installation, we'll be able to identify if there's leaks anywhere, which would mean that we're supplying less water because it's not running through on leaks. So there's less water coming through, which would mean our operating costs are lower. So with the mock billing, we're able to kind of work through that process to see if we can isolate some of those leaks, repair them, and get the system running more efficiently. And it would be the same for residents. So with the meters, you can identify if there's leaks on your property, so you're not paying for water that you're not actually using. So the mock billing period will give everybody the opportunity to look at that prior to actually being billed for your consumption.
So the goal, what you end up, as you know, with running a system, you're going to have a base overhead cost. So it'll be separating that out, making sure we have clear understanding of that. What does it cost to run a system? Then it's the fee that goes on it in regards to the consumption, the amount of water. So when I talked to Lisa Bloomfield, who's the other manager, about this, when she brought it to me, and I said at that time, if we have to pay money for the installation, we can't afford it, so we won't do it. And that's how we ended up getting it being paid for by a government grant. And in doing so, we're hoping that that baseline will come down, because right now you've got kind of a cap in regards to an average. We're all paying so much along here, but that's to cover the humps and hollows and the amount of use and the work. Where if all of a sudden you've got a base overhead, how much it costs to pay the people to do what they need to do day in, day out, and the infrastructure, and then the usage on that, so we should be able to come down to a lower base, is what I asked, because I said exactly what you said. Is it going to be less? The base will be less, and then people will be paying in regards to beyond that if they're the amount that they use. So the hope, again, and this is what I asked specifically because I had the same question. The person that basically cooks for themselves, has one toilet, doesn't have a lawn, uses a little bit of water, they shouldn't be paying the same amount of money as a person that's got a big lawn, a full family, washing machine, dishwasher, and the likes. So it'll be different. And that is why we also brought down recently the people that use RVs, the people live in an RVs. It's a reality today. Prior, it cost exactly, it was being charged the same as a house. But we brought that down because it was unrealistic. We already know that an RV does not use the water that a house is. So again, all the intent in moving forward is that you pay for what you're using, and that if you're using less, you should be paying less. But if you're using a lot because you need it, it'll cost more. So for instance, I'm on a different water system, but again, I pay for my daughter's little cottage, I pay for my home, but then also as a small orchardist, I pay for my irrigation water separately because it comes in separate. So from the same agency. So I'm paying for that. And I think it's important to know also in regards to the regional district, our fee is the least amount in the regional district and almost within the whole area, because some areas look at it differently. So for instance, right now you're paying $680, correct? This year? Headley, right, $680? Headley pays $621, but that's not the end of it. They have a parcel tax and they pay all their operating through that. So we pay everything in that fee, where a community like Headley is paying a fee plus. So they actually pay $1,000 a year for their water. And they're having some big challenges as well. So, you know, our goal is to keep it down because I understand, we in Area G have the highest amount of people on fixed incomes. And so I completely understand. It's again why I dealt with the curbside and didn't want it to go the way it was, because I understand $10, $20, $30 more a month is a big deal. And so it's really important. and everybody is working towards that goal. And like somebody else mentioned, we are held to the account by Interior Health, by the province. We have to do certain things. So our goal is to make sure that we make changes, that we can do things at most efficient, most cost-effective way, and to save you as a taxpayer and a fee ratepayer to pay less. So for instance, that's why Area G only has the Olalla, sore thumb holding that, only has the Olalla Water System as its infrastructure run by the regional district. So I get, every year we get so much money, infrastructure grant, and the majority of that grant I'm constantly funneling towards Olalla. You're one of the only systems in the whole Similkameen Valley that has a backup generator that costs nearly $300,000. So that when you have power outage, you still have water. If you have a fire that cuts it, you still have water. The money in regards to the reservoir lining that you have coming up, I've already put money aside so that you're not paying more as ratepayers. So I understand that it's costly, I understand that it's frustrating, and I'm not taking that back from anybody. I know it. Just even seeing the signs up on the road frustrates me, and I'm not dealing with it. So I do understand, but we are doing what we can, and I'm constantly going and trying to, and holding the staff accountable and asking the questions very much to what you're asking. And I appreciate hearing from people on Olalla, if you're anywhere in the regional district, that you call me and you have a problem so that I can suss it out. Because sometimes I'm not aware of everything at every moment of the time. But if I'm told about it, I will go after it, okay?
Yeah, no, it's okay. I understand. So, somebody else brought up the comment, are we going to get a refund for the water that we can't consume for the last 5, probably going on for up to 8 months? That's the pause is the answer.
That's a question that I would have to give to somebody. That's not something Shelley would have anything to do with.
Why not? Why isn't that person here yet?
Well, what we'll do is we'll take that question, but also if you also want to understand the price of the water, the price of trying to find the problem, the price of continuing doesn't go away. So how are we going to deal with that? So as somebody else stated, no matter what we do, it does end up coming out of all our back pockets somewhere along the line. So if we purchase that, if you don't want to boil your water and you want to buy water, and then if we cover it, then it's not we, it's here. It works out the same way again. So, because there's not, as a local government, the regional district, can't, and by law, make money. They have to just pay the cost of things. So that means if we end up at a greater cost with something, which is fair enough, we can do that, but it'll come as a shared cost to all of us.
Yeah, but if I'm providing a service and I'm giving something to someone to use, I'm responsible for my cost because that's my product. You have a product, but then you get all the consumers to pay for it.
But again, this is local government is only funded by the taxpayer. And you and I are the taxpayer. So it's not like we're a business and we have money that's separate from your taxes. That's where the money comes from.
Well, isn't this something? Poisoned water in Olalla. I've been drinking it all my life, never been sick. How's your fear level? This is what the chlorination program is about. Are we scared yet? Are you scared to drink it? My wife is. She boils her water. I don't. I've been drinking it all my life. Happy and healthy. And Tim, I want to thank you for your presentation tonight. And Shelley, you guys have done a good job. No black eyes, no bleeding lips. You're doing good.
If you're heading out or when you're going, grab the paper, there's a comment section. There's things to put down, what your concerns, your ideas. You don't put your own information on it. It just gets collected. The answers will then be put on the RDOS regional connections. If you have the inability to get to that, you can just always call me up and then I'll find out what the answers were for you.